We're talking about MSNBC, we're talking about CNN, and we're looking at, as recently as just yesterday, the alleged corruption in the system, right? Because Kamala Harris spent $1 billion. $1 billion on her campaign. This is historic, okay? And she's got nothing to show for it. Can you imagine if she was actually running our budget? I mean, DOGE, you can't come soon enough. Well, thank goodness she's not going to be. But one has to wonder, I mean, considering the hysteria in certain sections of the media, was this because, I don't know, were certain people on the payroll? I'm asking the question because of this story right here, right now. The Harris campaign, according to the New York Post, donated $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofit right before he sat down to do an interview with her, which was considered a softball interview. Now, isn't he an MSNBC guy? I mean, look, I think, again, if I'm Brian Roberts at Comcast, this thing is one giant hot potato. This is a fire sale. Get rid of this thing. One, it's got no future. Two, I'm burdened with all these questionable anchors doing questionable things. I mean, why are they so obsessed with Donald Trump losing? I mean, it became sort of hysterical. And then, funny enough, look what Joe Scarborough does the very next morning. He shows up at work in a suit and tie and suddenly is saying, I know why we lost. It's because of all that cultural nonsense that nonetheless people like Joy Reid continue to double down on in real time. Well, I'm asking the question, is this like pay to play? Like, are they all just somehow on the take? Somehow, some way they're getting money for this? Al Sharpton's nonprofit, National Action Network, allegedly got this $500,000. Now, don't forget the Washington Examiner went through a whole bunch of records. And what did they find? Harpo Productions, which runs the production company for Oprah Winfrey, got $1 million. 2 payments of $500,000 each. This is according to Washington Examiner. Now, Oprah says, no. Nothing to see here. There was nothing that she got. She was asked point blank about it just the other day by TMZ. She says, no, that didn't happen. But it just got me thinking, right? Beyonce apparently got some money. I wonder if Taylor Swift did. Shouldn't they have to disclose that? I mean, honestly, like here I am telling you balance of nature. As an advertiser on the show, I don't have a problem with it. It is what it is. Let's be truthful here. Al Sharpton, if you're getting paid by the Kamala campaign or your organization is getting paid, I kind of think that that's something that we should know about. I remember back when I worked at CNBC, they were super strict about speeches, maybe because they had run into this stuff before. So, you couldn't take any money for giving a speech somewhere. But then they kind of looked the other way with some people, and some people still somehow managed to do it. Suspicious. Again, if I'm Brian Roberts, I want to be done with this thing so darn fast. It is a fire sale. I can't get rid of it fast enough. But, some of the celebrities are saying no, like there's no wrong. I'll be curious to see what really happens with Oprah.
Hey, Oprah, good morning. How are you, darling? You looking very good. How do you think the election went?
Not talking about the election. Thank you very much.
Oh, is it true that they paid you $1 million for the endorsement for Kamala?
Not true.
Not true, okay.
I was paid nothing, ever.
What do you think about all the celebrities with their mass exodus?
I'm not talking about
Do you think Prince Harry's going to lose his visa now that Trump's president? Thank you, Oprah.
Oh, as she goes off in her Range Rover, Kamala Harris plowed through $1 billion, writes the Washington Examiner. I'm just saying, this is sus. That's my new word. The kids use it. Literally. Sus.
Guys.
Can you hear this guy? He's like, what's going on? He looks at Harris Faulkner talking.
$10 million for Beyonce.
What?
To step up and back Kamala Harris publicly. $5 million for Megan Thee Stallion. $3 million for Lizzo. $1.8 million for Eminem. I mean, is that normally how it goes? You spend 20.
Hold on a second. So,
and he's like, what the heck? I mean, what are these people doing? How is it that Donald Trump doesn't have to pay for Elon, for example, but, this woman's out there paying all kinds of crazy money for Megan Thee Stallion? Other people can look at that different ways, right? I get it, guys, because a lot of people will say Elon Musk, maybe he's going to benefit from some Pentagon contracts, etc. I'm just going to say something about Elon. Biden's so obsessed with these EVs. We would not have EVs, okay, if it were not for Elon Musk. We wouldn't be sending spaceships up to Mars if it weren't for Elon Musk. Elon Musk is really smart. I kind of want more of Elon Musk, not less. I can use a little less Megan Thee Stallion and Eminem and Oprah Winfrey, for goodness sakes. I agree. Peace of my mind is like, what the heck? She's out there saying she didn't personally get any money. Well, what about her company, Harpo Productions? The question should have, had a follow-up. The reporter needed to double down on that. Anyway, look, these celebrity types, they did not help her at all. Donald Trump graciously offering actually to pay some of the vendors off because, listen, I'm reading your comments as I do this show, and sometimes they're a little distracting because Don Baca had a really funny one. He writes, Lizzo gets paid by the pound. Okay. Yeah, all right. That was just too easy, right? Anyway, these people that are, out there saying, I want this, I want that. And then we look at them, as Mike says, Eminem's a sellout. I just wonder how many sellouts are there in the media itself? Is that why we had to listen ad nauseum to all of these anchors going on and on and on? Maybe the networks were getting paid. Maybe this is why they're freaking out. Oh my gosh, Donald Trump has won. The gravy train is over. Good. It's high time the gravy train be over. Think about the fact that they had to spend over $100,000 just to recreate the Call Her Daddy, Call Me Daddy, whatever the heck it is. I don't listen to it. Raunchy podcast show. So that Kamala could go on that, but she didn't want to travel to it. So no, they had to spend tons of money recreating the studio in her hotel room. I mean, imagine if she were in charge of your money, your taxpayer dollars. Instead, we're getting a guy in there who's saying, no, we need to save money. I mean, I know Trump, and he can be very generous, but he can also be a little bit cheap. And I mean this in a good way. He still knows the value of a dollar. And he doesn't believe in excess waste. I'll tell you a funny story, when I was at the White House to interview him, he was showing me around the Oval Office, and actually he doesn't work in the Oval Office. That's more like, how shall we say, almost like a production studio, right? That's sort of where they take the photo op, etc. But he works in this room off this hallway. So there's a narrow hallway, and there's this room that kind of reminds me of, it's old. It's sort of it reminded me of an old dining room, because there was this big, long dining room table, and he would sit at one end of it, and he had all the TVs displayed at the other end, and he had his laptop computer and his cell phone, and that's where he would work. And right off of that, there's a little closet, which he was kind of funny about it. He's like, this closet? That's where apparently Clinton and Monica had their thing. Anyway, I digress, and we're keeping it clean. We're not Call Her Me Daddy, whatever it is. So there's this closet, and he would keep his gifts in there for people, and he had these bowls, and I remember him giving me a bowl, and it was this sort of funny thing. It was just a little trinket worth less than $50, and he said, here, this is for you. He's like, actually, it's your taxpayer dollars anyway. I'm not giving you anything of value. And by the way, the taxpayers pay for this stuff. He seemed kind of just astonished that, taxpayers are paying. I digress. But my point being, he knows the value of a dollar. He's very aware of the value of a dollar. And I think that's one of the things that Americans like about him. I don't think Kamala really is. He's got way more dollars than her. But Kamala's just not sort of clued in to what stuff costs. I could see Trump being like, it's going to cost $100,000. No way. Well, just get me on a plane or something. He'd find some other way to do it. Or he'd call in, or who knows. But he would not spend $100,000 to remake a hotel room into a studio. It would just go against, I think, his sort of foundation. And I think that's what a lot of voters still respond to. So even though he's as wealthy as he is, he's going to be in sync with Elon on this thing. Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, he's just going to love it, right? Because he's going to want to make sure that they're running a tight ship. He doesn't like the idea of dollars falling through the cracks. And don't we need somebody like that? Right? I've often said we need more of a CEO that's looking for quarterly earnings. Speaking of which, just about 6 weeks ago, I sat down at a conference in New York City with a bunch of investors and Vivek Ramaswamy, actually. I was interviewing him on stage for this. I may have told you guys. And he talked a lot about how we could instill some kind of privatization, if you would, into the government. And so I wasn't totally following him at the time. I remember asking, well, what do you mean? Like, would you put in private-public partnerships? And he's like, no, because you have all kinds of room for graft in something like that. And I said, well, how are you going to actually create a scenario where government workers are incentivized to be as sort of streamlined and profitable as they can be, like to make the most of something? And I think this is what they're going to really start attacking. This is what they're going to be looking at. It's outside of government. So it's almost like, I know everybody hates this when consultants come in, but think about a consulting company coming in and saying, okay, you guys are really not running this business very well. And we think that we could help you a lot if you did X, Y, and Z. And that's what they're going to do. So as the government becomes more efficient, maybe they do outsource some stuff, or maybe they take a page out of Elon's book. When you think about Twitter having to fire 80% of its workforce, could we do a whole lot more with less? I hope, right?